And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Monday, sea ice analysis looking something like this. Well south of St. Matthew Island now and continuing to advance south and southwestward here all the way into Bristol Bay. And this pattern will continue probably for at least through most of this week. And from there, looking at tonight's weather again, a front brings wet conditions back into the southeast coast, spreading northward, and a trough pulling westward here keeps it cloudy with areas of snow going over south central Alaska, with a trough extending some light snow up in the central interior. Cold again, no change out west, and a front just grazing the Aleutians with some moisture and gusty east winds and northeast winds. Tomorrow slides a little farther to the southeast. The low center does, barely on the map now, but the front close enough to bring some light precipitation from Unalaska westward to Adak. Low pressure keeps it cloudy with areas of snow, mainly western Cook Inlet to the Alaska Range, southward into southern Cook Inlet, eastern Kenai Peninsula, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, eastern Turnagain Arm there, with lesser chances in the Susitna Valley and northern Cook Inlet. Dry over the interior, and that front washes out over the Panhandle for rain and snow continuing, but winds on the light side. Next system pushes back in toward the southeast coast on Wednesday, and some remnant moisture in that weak trough here keeps it cloudy with a few snow showers around south central Alaska. Dry again over the interior, and dry with light winds over all the Bering Sea. Coastal water forecast: southeast winds 20 knots there for the south coast of the Panhandle. Central coast east-southeast at 25, and east winds 25 to 30 for the north coast. Lynn Canal north at 15. Stevens Passage, Clarence Strait southeast at 15. And then for Wednesday, gale warnings here for the central and south coast for southeast winds 35 to 40 knots. Clarence Strait south winds 30 knots with 10-foot seas, and southeast winds at 20 for Passage Canal, south 20 for Lynn Canal. And then the north coast here, small craft advisories, east winds 25 to 30 knots. Cook Inlet northwest winds for Tuesday at 15 knots, west winds 35 knots. Kamishak Bay turning northwest at 30 for the Barren Islands. North winds 20 knots here for the western North Gulf Coast, east 30 knots for the eastern North Gulf Coast, and small craft advisories for Prince William Sound, east winds 25 knots, seas 4 feet. And then for Wednesday, Prince William Sound northeast at 15, seas 3 feet now. East-northeast winds 15 to 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast. Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, winds will be northwest on Tuesday at 20 knots. And Cook Inlet, north winds 10 to 15 knots, 2 to 3 foot seas. Bristol Bay on Tuesday, north winds 15 knots, north to northeast winds 15 to 20 knots for the Alaska Peninsula. Kodiak Island, west winds 25 knots, seas 5 feet. And for Kodiak on Wednesday, northwest winds at 20 knots, north 15 for the Bristol Bay area, and north winds 15 to 20 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, with seas here on the Pacific side running 5 to 8 feet and 4 to 6 feet here for the Bering Sea side. And for the eastern Aleutians, east to northeast winds tomorrow 25 to 35 knots, good gales for Adak and Atka, northeast at 40 knots, and for the western Aleutians, Kiska to Shimia, northeast 25. And then on Wednesday, late in the day, look for gales to return to the western Aleutians there, southeast 40 knots, otherwise northeast at about 30 knots for Adak and Atka, and small craft advisories for the eastern Aleutians, northerlies or so at 25 to 30 knots. And the southwest coast tomorrow, north winds 15 to 25 knots. St. Lawrence Island north at 15. Norton Sound, north winds 20 knots, northeast 20 for St. Matthew Island. Pribilof Islands, northeast at 25 with 8-foot seas. Those come down a little bit there for St. Paul and St. George on Wednesday, northeast at 20. North 15 for St. Matthew Island. St. Lawrence Island, southwest coast, north winds 20 knots. Norton Sound, north at 15. And for the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast, light winds 5 to 10 knots out of the northwest to southwest. Western Arctic coast, light south winds at 10 knots, and the Chukchi Sea looking at 20-knot northerlies. And then for Wednesday, not much change for the Chukchi Sea. Northerly winds 15 to 25 knots. Light variable winds for the remainder of the Arctic coast at 5 to 10 knots.